All right, everybody, welcome back into Mining Stock Daily in the Rule Investment Symposium for Natural Resources. Welcoming in an old friend, Mr. Zach Flood from Kenorland Minerals for a well overdue corporate update. Zach, welcome back. Good to see you.
Thanks, Trevor. Thanks for, I'm glad we could connect here.
Yeah, the couple years you and I have been running into this conference. This year looks pretty dang busy. You have actually got into the main hall, so congratulations on that. And traffic's been picking up. I've seen a lot of people at the table.
Yeah, no, we've been coming here for a few years, and Rick Rule's always been a big supporter. So yeah, happy to attend down here and meet a lot of familiar faces and some new ones.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's just jump right into it. There's been a lot of news on the Kenorland front, but a lot of news on that South Uchi project that you've been working with in collaboration with Auranova Resources. You just announced a geophysical survey, but there was an interesting discovery made that was announced a few weeks ago. So maybe get us reintroduce to South Uchi and what really the work has been showing you up to this point.
Okay, so yeah, South Uchi is an evolving discovery happening in the Red Lake district. Kenorland initially generated this project probably 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
This is pre-Great Bear takeout, but it's a continuation of that Confederation volcanic belt out to the east. It's about 80,000 hectares, so it's a really big property. We had Barrick in there for 2 years. They were operating. They did a lot of the geochemical work that we had laid out, and then they, for one reason or another, without drill testing anything, kind of gave up and handed the project back to us. We saw that there was a target there in terms of the gold in the surface geochem. We did a summer or two of kind of intense, detailed geochem sampling and prospecting and defined a large-scale gold target. Lots of gold mineralization in bedrock where it was outcropping. And that's when we brought in Auranova, which was private at the time. As you mentioned, we got a 30% carry to pre-feasibility study. We've got a large equity position in Auranova, and we have a 2% NSR on the project as well. And so that's kind of, that took us to our initial drill program early last year. And that was testing kind of the west side of the Papa-Onga target area, which is this kind of extensive golden till anomaly in golden bedrock. That turned up widespread gold mineralization, but nothing really hung together. There was no real center of mass there, but there was gold in all sorts of rocks over a big area. On that program, we did one fence stepping out, like way out to the east side of the lake. Hit a shear zone, the volcanic, saw some VG, nice quartz veining. Got pretty excited about that. And we put, so we did a follow-up program there at the end of last year where we did, a lot of step-out drilling along that shear. Unfortunately, the results weren't really spectacular in terms of grade, but at the very end of that program we swung a big fence up to the north, which is an area that I'm getting to called North Papa. And on that last fence of that second program, we hit a broad zone of gold mineralization undercover, and it returned multiple intercepts, 10, 20, 30 meters at like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 grams per ton, so lots of smoke. Big first order shear zone on the belt, all undercover, and that alone warranted this third phase of drilling, which we just carried out earlier this year. And this last drill program, which was phase 3, stepped out to the east and west of that fence, like kilometer step outs and one 500 meter step out to the east. And here we hit, higher grade gold, still very broad gold mineralization, but like a 200 meter wide zone of, 0.2, 0.3, 0.5, kind of grading over like multiple intervals, but like a big wide zone of gold mineralization. There was an intrusion in the middle of that intercept that was, intensely altered, had disseminated pyrite, again, lots of gold over a big wide area, good lithological complexity in there with the intrusion, and it looks like we're getting closer to something, and it looks like it's got a significant footprint. We haven't hit the home run yet, but the results on that last program, caused us all to just say, look, we can't walk away from this. We're getting closer. Auranova was fired up to get back in there, and so we decided on launching this IP survey, because obviously you're looking at disseminated gold or disseminated sulfide, so it should give you a signal in the IP kind of resistivity data. So we're doing a big IP survey over that whole trend, and it's a pretty deep IP survey, really long lines looking down to over 500 to 700 meters at depth. So the idea is really to take a step back, image everything geophysically, hopefully find a big chargeability target, and hopefully that's associated with a big gold system. And so likely there'll be a follow-up drill program after this survey, depending on what we see there. But it's a exploration is an iterative process, and it seems like every time we've had a drill program, we've ended it with let's throw a fence over in this area where we have no information, and then that leads us to another kind of area of this, large. The Papaanga target area is like 10 kilometers long by 4 kilometers north-south. So you can hide a big gold system in a lot of different places in there. But I think we're starting to work it out. So
you did hit a couple short intervals of higher grade. You had like a meter of 7 grams per ton, 1.5 meters of 9 grams per ton. Those were holes 46 and 43 I'm seeing. So obviously those are going to stick out. But I wanted to ask you to kind of follow up here on the old iterative and exploration, drill it to kill it. Give me a reason not to come back, not to allocate capital to a risky business like exploration drilling. And, it sounds like you had multiple chances to do that, drill it to kill it here in the last few phases with Uchi. What was it that kept bringing you back?
Well, I try to explain that. It's like at the very end of these programs, again, you're throwing a Hail Mary into a different part of the target area where you're testing, let's just throw a fence across this, this trough that's covered with glacial till that we have no information on. Oh, wow, look at that. There's gold mineralization underneath there, on a big structure. So, but that was the last fence of the program. So now you have to do a follow-up program there. You got to follow up on that. It's not like you're, we're not going back in testing the same areas that we drilled. It's like you have one hole or one fence somewhere that is in a new area, and it's, highlighting that there's, a structure with gold on it. So you got to follow up on that. I think if you go back, look at some of Auranova's press releases, Chris Taylor makes some comments in there too, right? It's his experience at the LP fault is really valuable in terms of looking at what's happening here, and he's super excited about what he's seeing. I think you look at that Great Bear. I think they were the 7th company in there. And there was drill programs in all 7 of those companies in different areas around there, and there was even some holes that cut across the LP fault during those earlier campaigns that had gold on them, and just it just took putting the holes in the right place or being a little more aggressive or systematic about it.
What are you and Auranova most confident about now, or maybe questions that have been answered over the last 2 years that you knew needed to be answered when you first started?
Well, we want to understand where the large gold and till anomaly is being sourced from. And so, you look up ice of those anomalies, right? So the area we're drilling now is up ice of that anomaly. There's a big footprint in the surface material, and so I don't think we've explained that in the previous programs. Now what we're drilling, even though it's not, super high grade, when you're seeing 200 meter wide corridor of gold mineralization, that's quite significant on the belt scale. We're also we're Well, it's drilling across like the major first order structure that's like runs through that entire belt. It's a big shear zone. It's in a big trough. It's covered with thick till, so there's no surface expression. There's no outcrop. This is like a blind discovery, and it's I just think you don't want to walk away from that. At that point.
I'm gonna say something. I don't want to like burst your ego or blow up your ego, but I do think you are one of the best gold explorers, not only in Canada but in the world right now. And you are paired up with arguably another, if not the best gold explorer, with Chris Taylor. Where do your philosophies of exploration are compatible with one another, and where do they contradict each other to where you both have like come up with different ideas and see things differently?
That's really interesting. First, thanks for that. That's kind of you to say, but I think it's really interesting because I was explaining this to people and some shareholders and other people involved in Auranova, that everyone has a different take on results, like, and it's not like one person's right or wrong. It's just like some people are way more optimistic and they'll push for that one more drill program, and that might be the one that results in a major discovery. And there's others who, might just say, look, we've tested it and what we see is maybe not good enough, so we're just going to walk. And I think that just depends on what how you set the risk profile in your own business, right? So we're not the ones funding the exploration here. It's Auranova. They've set out to be very aggressive, to swing for the fence, to make a big discovery, and so that's their stance is, hell, we're not walking away from this. We're going to go back in there. We're going to hit this as hard as we can. We're going to take a huge swing. A company like Kenorland's probably a bit more conservative, and obviously we don't drill test a lot of things ourselves, but I would say it helps to have someone like Chris's experience in making a huge discovery. I mean, Kenorland's been involved in a really big discovery as well, the Frotet project, obviously Renault, where we've got the large royalty. Interesting, that's my perspective, my experience on that one. I always go back and think, like, did we know that was a huge discovery on the first or second drill program? Absolutely not. It took 130,000 meters of drilling to finally go, oh yeah, no, there's probably 5+ million ounce potential here. Yeah. But even the first few, drill programs, you go, oh yeah, there's a gold system here, but is it 500,000?
Well, I did want to ask you if Frotet was like a good analogy to what you're doing with South Uchi, but it's just maybe the analogy is more on the process.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, you got to take it step by step. Like I said, it's iterative. Every program, if it gets better, you keep going. If it starts getting worse, then maybe you give up, right? And so as long as every time we go in there, we're drilling something better, then that's a reason to keep going, right? And I think that's the key message.
Well, what's interesting about Kenorland, and you and I have chatted about this, I think months ago, was really the current valuation, I believe, is really hinged to that NSR on Frotet right now. That's where your valuation. So you're not really getting a whole lot of value from your ongoing work at Uchi. However, maybe that's the buffer you need, because if you were a one project pony and you put out those drill results, the market would hit you really hard, right? That's not something that's going to get people, retail at least, very excited. But you do have this nice valuation from the royalty, but what will it take to get more value with the exploration work, which is really what Kenorland is all about with your project generation model? Mm-hmm. Where is that going to really come in?
I think right when there's a real discovery that's made, a major discovery which requires a spectacular drill hole and the validation that you're onto something that could become an economic ore deposit, and which that's it. It's black or white, in my opinion. I mean, you either have found that or you haven't, and the market will figure it out pretty quickly, I think. There's not too many of those that have been found in the last, even 10 years, and the ones that are found are getting multi-billion-dollar kind of, values, like Snowline, like Great Bear was, like, well, it's pretty. I think it's, again, for me, it's got to be pretty obvious. But if we pull a hole like that in the portfolio, then there's going to be an obvious massive re-rate in Kenorland's value as well. Yeah.
All right, so you're returning to Uchi this in Q3 with a new drill program, follow-up program. So obviously more work ahead. I do want to ask you about Frotet. What's the latest on the ground? What's going on there?
Yeah, so we should have an update on that out in the next month or two. We're currently looking at the results from the last two drill programs that Sumitomo operated there. Right. Now they are the operator. It's I think they're doing great work. They're we're obviously have a close eye on it, and we work with them looking at the drill targeting as well, seeing what they're doing, and really we were wondering, we put out the maiden resource at the end of last year. There was 2.5 million ounces at 5.5 grams per ton in the inferred category. There's a huge amount of material that was kept in potential, that we can't disclose in a 483-101, but there's, a significant amount of low-hanging fruit there that could be converted to inferred with infill drilling. But it's also wide open. The system is wide open, like, especially at depth, in the deeper parts, the R9, 10, 11, 12, all those veins have, just a few holes in them, all hitting high-grade gold, open along strike, up dip, down dip. So the question was, like, what's Sumitomo's strategy going to be here? Are they going to do way more infill drilling and convert, or are they going to step out and grow the footprint? And I think luckily what we saw is they're doing both of those things. They're putting the infill
awesome
drill hole. Yeah, they're putting the infill drilling where it's needed to eventually convert those potential ounces to inferred. And then they're also, aggressively still stepping out, especially in the deeper parts of the system, to demonstrate the growth potential. So yeah, really excited to put out these results in the next, month or two, and show the market, where this thing's heading. And
you don't have much involvement there on the ground anymore, though, do you?
No, we don't. Yeah. But we, just Sumitomo is still a 10.1% shareholder. Yu Yamato is president of Sumitomo Metal Mine Canada. He's on our board.
They just upped as well, right?
Well, they're just maintaining their 10.1% interest. We're always looking at. They're looking at other opportunities we have in our portfolio. Our team along with them, but really Kenorland's geologists were the ones that drove the geologic modeling on Renault itself. So we're still working very closely with them. I think they're fully capable, though, at this point, kind of running with it. But I think it's just more, we're there since the beginning, so we're always going to have a close eye on it and kind of a finger on the pulse there. And we'll probably be getting up to site this year as well to look at the drill core. And
the last thing I wanted to kind of talk about really was just the business side of Kenorland. You hold equity stakes in a number of different companies. So obviously you have other assets, means of liquidity if need be. We saw a really hot gold market going into the end of January before this thing cooled off. But I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on using those opportunities to make sales of stock, if that's something, when does Kenorland really think about, well, we hold this equity in this company, maybe it's time to, add some extra cash to the business by selling some of that. How does that process work on the business side?
Well, our major equity positions right now, which I think, comprise of around $18 million worth of stock, are really three holdings, which is Auranova, which is just out the gates, and we're working closely with them on the South Uchi project, so obviously not time to sell. There's Kulu Gold Corporation, too, which is focused in Côte d'Ivoire. They just raised $35 million privately. there's going to be a massive drill program on their flagship project, on our flagship project, because I do work with the company closely. I'm the chairman there. That's going to be at the end, starting in kind of Q4 this year and into early next year. 20,000 meters of drilling on this amazing target in Côte d'Ivoire. So again, and likely there'll be a listing following that.
Sure.
So again, too early to do anything. And then Prospector Royalty Corp, which we own, 39% of. Prospector has been a really interesting company that we've built behind the scenes with Tim Young as the other major shareholder, Bill Rand, and Gold Royalty Corp owning 12%. And Prospector has been consolidating royalty ownerships in major mining camps in Canada. It has a large-scale proprietary royalty database and platform that can generate and evaluate those opportunities. And even a small cash flowing royalty on the AK deposit, which is part of the Macassa complex in Kirkland Lake. It's been 5 years in the making, but I feel like it's just starting to get going as well. So
basically, you're not selling.
Yeah, these equity positions have a huge potential to, multiply over the coming years, and that could present a huge windfall for Kenorland, obviously. I think right now too we're okay on our cash position. I think we've got around 12 million in the treasury. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to see a lot of other partnerships develop, or a few other partnerships develop in our portfolio, which will take a lot of that sole funded off of our plate, convert that to partner funded, and then along with the partner funded and us operating that, we're generating more revenue through management fees as well. So, I think we're in a pretty good position right now.
Yeah,
sure.
No, absolutely. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the next 6 months. We obviously talked a lot about Uchi, talked a lot about Renault. What else is kind of on this horizon here that we need to be keen to be, have an eye on here in the next few months? Yeah,
so we just finished a drill program at West Wabigoon. That's in Western Ontario. That was funded by Centerra. We'll have a press release on some observations there in the next week, maybe this week, maybe next week. So it has a 4,000 meter maiden drill program on a big gold target there, kind of south of Dryden. There's likely to be another drill program with Targa up in the Opanaka, northern James Bay there, where we have a 3% uncapped NSR, and we made a gold discovery there last year, and so we're doing a follow-up program there this year likely. And other than that, outside of that, we've got boots on the ground on multiple projects right now, doing large-scale, systematic geochem surveys, in the Red Lake District, and moving over to, Fort Hope Miminisca, which is along that Uchi domain far out to the east. And we've got some other projects that are being advanced in central Uchi, which is like the Birch Uchi Greenstone Belt. So, yeah, just, everything all at once, doing lots of exploration. Yeah.
Not an inch of Canada is left untouched with Kenorland geologists. Have you been spending some time out in the bush this summer, or beholden to office and family time?
Yeah, office, family, and now in Florida at the Rick Rule Symposium.
This is your holiday? Your 1 day out?
Yeah.
Your 1 week out? Oh, that's good. Glad we could have you. Thanks for the update. It's been a long time overdue. Obviously, a number of things to be watching here the last 6 months with Kenorland Minerals. Appreciate it. We miss you, Zach. We miss you.
Thanks, Trevor. Miss you too. No, it's been great.
All right. Kenorland Minerals trades on the venture with KLD and on the OTCQX with KLD-CF, and I am a shareholder of the company. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more here from the Rule Symposium. The information presented should not be considered investment advice. Mining Stock Daily and its affiliates are not responsible for any loss arising from any investment decision in connection with the material presented herein. Please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial representative before making any investment decisions.